So in order for us to fix this little issue here that we have, let's see, where on a phone we're able to have this behavior, right? We actually open a new intent, but inside of the same application, but when we use a tablet, we don't want this to happen. We want to make sure that we actually fill out this fragment here, this section. Okay. So in order for us to do that, we're going to do a few things, right? Because we know everything is put together inside of our main activity here. We're going to naturally go to our main activity. So at the top of our class, I'm going to go ahead and create a Boolean here. I'm going to say private Boolean, and I'm going to call this is to pane. I'm going to pass a false, give it a false. I'm going to use that to check whether we are in to pane, meaning we are on a larger device, or if we are indeed using a phone. So inside of our own create method here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if, because we know if we go to our layout here, we have two layouts. We have the SW60dp layout, which is for larger device. If you double click, you remember now we have this other frame layout called the detail container. But on our normal one, we don't have it. We just have one frame. Okay? So we need to figure out a way to differentiate the two. So what I'm going back to our main activity here, what I'm going to say if find view by ID r.id.detail container as such is not null. If that's the case, I know that it exists, right? That means now we're talking about this activity main XML SW600dp, which is now for a bigger screen. If that's the case, I'm going to say is to pane. In fact, this should be to pane as such. I'm going to say it's true. So now what I'm going to do on item selected, I'm going to check. I'm going to say if to pane is true. In this case, I'm going to give an else. If that's true, what I need to do, in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and create a fragment. I'm going to go ahead and create our fragment. What I'm going to do, in fact, I'm going to copy this because we don't need that anyway. I'm going to put it in here. Let's go ahead and uncomment that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a fragment manager object. Okay, and then I'll create a fragment. Remember this fragment here. In fact, I'm going to change this. It's going to equal to new fragment. In fact, actually, we're going to create the fragment, the course detail fragment. Let's say course detail fragment, because that's what we want to use. I'm going to call course detail fragment. I'm going to just say new course detail fragment. So I'm instantiating with the course detail fragment empty constructor. Okay, so I'm constructing my fragment. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and change this. So I have the code. I'm going to say course detail fragment is not null. We don't need this anymore. In fact, I'm going to just get rid of this. Invoke our fragment manager and say begin our transaction. So I'm going to pass here our my container. In fact, it's going to be detail container as such. And I'm going to pass here the course detail fragment. And instead of adding, I'm going to replace. Okay, this is what we need because we're replacing wherever we have currently with our detail container. And I'm going to go ahead and commit. And else, that means if indeed we are talking about the activity, and else if we were talking about a phone, then we are free to use the intent as we had here before. But you have to remember the other thing here is that we still have to pass the arguments, right? The bundle or this information here, because we need this position, which we're passing instead of an item selected, so that our fragment also knows which object or which course that we are referencing to. So right about here at the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and course detail fragment. I'm going to say dot set arguments. I'm going to set a bundle. Now we don't have that bundle here. I'm just going to go ahead and create a bundle here. I'll say bundle is equal to new bundle, and I'm going to put, and then I'm going to say bundle.put int. I'm going to put the string, it's going to be course underscore ID, and the integer is going to be position. Okay, because we need to create a bundle in order for us to set arguments, because this only accepts bundle, as you can see. So we're going to put now our bundle inside. Okay, and that's it. So we're saying here, if the layout that is shown is indeed doesn't have the detail container is not null, that means then it contains detail container ID. In this case, we're talking about not this layout activity, we're talking about this layout here, because look at that, we have the detail container. So now we know that this is indeed for our tablet. Okay, so then we set is toPane is true. And then on item selected here, what we did, I put an if statement. So if it's true that this indeed we are inside of a tablet device, then what I do, I created a bundle object, and I put inside of this bundle the position, which is the integer that we're passing here, which then we'll use to get the course that was tapped and all its information. So then I created here a manager. I call this FM, that's a fragment manager. And then I instantiated the course detail fragment, because we have that, we created earlier. Instantiated that. And then I set arguments. So I added the arguments, and we have to pass the bundle. Which bundle? This one that we created here, which will have the course ID, which is very important, because that's what's needed. If we go to course detail fragment, that's what's needed. Look at this. We get the course ID, and then we create the actual course, which then this course object here, notice inside of onCreate view, it creates the views and passes in the course name, course resource ID, which will get the image, and then the course name again. We could have had another field inside of our course class for details, but that's something you can do yourself. That's not hard at all. Okay? And that's what we're doing. And once that's done, we say FM, and we start the beginning transaction. And the only difference here is that instead of the add, we are replacing, right? So we're replacing with detail control. We're replacing with what? Well, we're replacing with detail container, and we're passing in our fragment object. And of course, like always, we have to commit to say, yes, everything is great. We indeed say this is good. We commit, and we are on. Okay. And in case that we are not in toPane, meaning that we are on a phone, then we just pass what we had before, intent, and we still pass the course ID, and we start our activity. Very simple. So now if you go ahead and save this and give it a run, and again have both of them selected, and if we run this, the beauty is going to happen. Look at this. So for our phone, we expect the same behavior. So we can go back. Very, very nice. But now check this out. Inside of our tablet, now if we go ahead and click on first, look at that. You see, now we don't have to go to a different screen, right? Because we have enough space here. So now we're invoking our fragment inside here, a container, and we're passing all of that information there. Look at this. Very, very nice. And the images and everything is indeed working properly. Very, very, very nice. Okay? Great. So in this section here, so we went through a process to learn about fragments. Again, you don't have to use fragments in order to create applications, right? We've created great applications before using just activities. But you see the flexibility here now. With fragments, you have this compartmentalized code that you can use in any activity. Okay? And that really helps, especially when we start having issues of showing information on bigger tablets, on bigger devices, as opposed to just showing on the phone. So it gives you that flexibility. And I really would encourage you to keep using fragments, even though you can do all of that using activities, but it's easier with fragments because then you can interchangeably start changing layouts at runtime, just like what we did here. So it's one of those topics that a lot of people don't talk about because it's a little bit more work, a little bit more code. But once you really understand it, and once you get used to it, you will understand that, you will see that you are always going to be better off using fragments as opposed to using just activities and intents. Okay, so that's it for now. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. But I will encourage you to, if you need to, watch a couple times this whole section here, and really try to understand what's really going on here. And if you don't, again, like I said, again, just ask the questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer. All right, folks, thank you so much. I'll see you next.